844. I don't have time to write it. Daily Art Adventure number 844. I think that's right, isn't it? Oh no, I'm sorry, it's 845. Please ignore the man in the blue apron. Never trust a man in a blue apron anyway. All right, so let me tell you, feeling to see how sticky it is. It's definitely tacky. It's not dripping wet, but it's tacky. All right, acrylic. Hi, my name's Dan. Sorry for the disorganization at the moment. Doing a 36 by 72 inch painting, and because it's so large, I'm doing it in a slightly different order. I went over this yesterday, but I'll review for those of you who missed it. This is my go-by photograph, and as you can see, it has a grid on it, and I put a likewise grid on here. So I spent quite a bit of time yesterday and today, first of all, painting, long-handled brushes, mostly drawing, following the grid, drawing all these buildings. Pretty careful, much more careful than normal. And then after that was finished, then I did all this big abstract mess. Okay, these purple lines and these yellow and red lines and white lines. Okay, that's after I'm right on top of the drawing in acrylics, drawing in paint. Okay, then the next thing I did was drew the whole thing again with these pencils. Well, in fact, these very pencils, because you can see the the points are all worn down, sharpened repeatedly during the process. So if I zoom in here real tight, you can see the result of that. Now, while I was doing the pencils, I ended up also picking up the paint quite a bit, especially white paint, as you can see, for instance, down here even more clearly. And I did white details on top of the pencil, but I did that in all different colors everywhere. So the upshot of all that is that I have an acrylic drawing that is quite a bit more finished, detailed, tight, and realistic than I normally achieve in the acrylic stage. This is a commission painting, and I want it to be fairly accurate. There are actually there are some inaccuracies in it that I won't bother pointing out to you, but they don't really matter anyway. You know, just like a building that's a little too wide or too short or too tall or too narrow or something like that. But it doesn't matter. It's essentially a copy of the skyline of my hometown, Raleigh, North Carolina, as viewed from Dix Hill, D-I-X, Dix Hill. Dorothea Dix, famous turn of the 20th century advocate for mental health. So that it was our state hospital was on Dix Hill for many years. It's now vacated. The city has bought this hill, turning it into, over the next 50 years, into our version of Central Park. So some of us are really excited about that. I am. And this view emerged about 8 or 9 or 10 years ago when a bad tornado came through Raleigh and did a lot of damage. But one of the good things it did, it blew down some big, beautiful, sad to say, that it blew down some beautiful trees, big trees. But the good news is it left this gap. The tornado literally went right through here and blew down some big trees, because otherwise, here's what we'd be seeing of the skyline. Virtually that. So one nice thing that the tornado did do for us, besides a bunch of bad things, it gave us an additional beautiful viewpoint of my hometown, Raleigh, North Carolina. So let me review the steps. Grid, draw with brushes, then make a mess, abstract mess, Then draw again with pencils and brushes. I'm going to call that one step. That's 4. And then, because I'm in territory that I'm not normally in this place, that is to say, the drawing is much tighter, realistic, and so on and so forth than what I normally achieve in acrylics, which is fine. Took me quite a bit of time, as you can imagine. But then I did one more thing that I don't think ever done before, and that is that I painted a transparent isolation layer, transparent glaze over the entire canvas. Now let me point out, just for fun, I've had people complain to me before about how these pencils smear on them, and I've never had that problem till today. Now I don't mind this at all, actually. I don't mind the dirtiness. I'm gonna work with it. It'll work fine. But I did discover probably what, for some reason, never has happened to me to this degree before, that the black, because I was doing transparent glaze, and of course I tried just not to, I didn't go back and forth, I just rubbed it one direction and left it. Anyway, so that's where I'm at, layer number 7 now, and which is going to be mostly glazes. But before I do glazes, I have here some watercolor sticks, watercolor sticks. One orange and one red. Now let's pick up a blue one. And all I'm doing here is just, again, throwing myself more of a curveball. Slapping, if you will, you can tell by the lack of care, just slapping on abstract stuff onto the canvas. Often I describe my mindset, my thinking this way, that my goal, one of my chief goals in the underpainting phase is to create lots of chaos, or sufficient chaos, so that when I get to the finishing stages, like the final edit layer, that I have lots of chaos to respond to. And that doesn't make sense unless you've watched me for a while. Be that as that is days, weeks, months, whatever. So let's just get on with it. I'm going to be doing glazes. I have here in a little jar, I have more in a bottle over there. This is transparent acrylic glossy glaze. And I'm looking and thinking here. Hello, Peachy. Hello, Crystalline. That's right, silver lining to everything. Peachy, and you are right, Crystalline. It's sort of a sealing layer, but in fact it will actually add depth. Just that extra layer of transparency just kind of separates everything on top of it a little bit more. And it sounds kind of strange, almost like kooky metaphysical, but there's a degree of truth there. Let me think for a minute. The sky. This is going to be an evening painting. You can see this is a lousy copy of one of my paintings that's actually 4 by 6 feet, so quite a bit bigger. Well, no, somewhat, just a little bit bigger than this one. But my client saw this on my website and said, we would like a painting similar to that one. All right? So detail-wise, again, I'm going from this photograph, right? But color-wise, I'm going from that. Now, not slavishly, but I'm going to lean in that direction a little bit, right? And here's a rule of thumb for me, my rule of thumb. If there's a lot of sky in a painting, then I do the sky typically complementary underpainting. In other words, orange, yellow, red, or pink under the blue sky, if there's a lot of sky. Now this painting, is there a lot of sky? It's kind of like borderline. So as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to do some of the sky complementary color. That's what I'm doing right now. Ooh, that was that was nice. You're wondering what was nice. Okay, what was nice was I have yellow and orange and transparent on these brushes. But when I ran it across the green watercolor stick that I rubbed on there just a few minutes ago, you saw me, I got this explosion of green. Now, guess what? I know this is so, some of you, this is like, what? But from my world, an accidental explosion, in this case, of color, is almost always a good thing. And I'm using pretty small brushes for this task, really, but I would like you to notice at the moment, I am ostensibly, that is, I told you I was painting the sky. The sky, not this guy. And again, here's the process. I just dipped my brushes in my little tub that has red acrylic in it with about 50% medium. And then after that, I dip my brushes in transparent, pure acrylic medium. So what I have on my brushes is transparent red, doubly transparent red. Did you follow that? And for those of you who are new to me here, so here's my little pots. I have 9 of these: purple, red, orange, yellow, green, phthalo blue, ultramarine, brown, and white. And white is pure out of the bottle. All the other bottles are roughly 50% fluid acrylic. This is Lucas, medium, not a high quality paint. It doesn't need to be for my purposes. In fact, it's easier if it's not high quality, because then I would have to add a lot more medium to it. So it's just a nice manageable intensity of pigment. All right, I started a minute ago, and I am reportedly, that is ostensibly, I said to you a few minutes ago that I was painting the sky, and yet I would like you to notice that I am most certainly not coloring in the lines. Did you notice that? I'm switching over here, switching to phthalo blue now. I'm going to dip my brush, so it's phthalo blue plus transparent medium. So once again, I'm painting the sky, but look at my paint strokes, my coloring the sky. I'm going 4, 5, or 6 inches, maybe a foot, yeah, a good foot there, out of the lines. If I could use, if you'll let me use coloring book language here for just a minute. Coloring book language is you color in the lines, right? That's the whole idea behind coloring books. You color in the lines. And as a little kid, the better you are at coloring books, at some age in your journey, the more better, the mo better you color in the lines, right? Age 5, 6, 7, 8, you're sticking out your tongue and struggling to keep up with your big sister, or your big brother, or your friend who's older than you in school, and he or she colors in the lines really well. All right, so using that kind of language, please notice how crazy outside the lines, I'm coloring, okay? And I just want you to make a mental note of that. It's like, golly, he sure is coloring outside the lines. Okay, I don't want you to miss that. And of course, as you know, well, why are you, the big question is, why am I doing that, right? Well, I've already answered that. I'll answer it one way. And I've already alluded to it one time in this broadcast. By the way, I'm going to pick up a rag right now. And likewise, paint, again, not staying inside the lines, but negative painting negative in this sense. I'm taking off paint, so that's what in this case, that's what I mean by negative painting, taking paint off. Okay. Now I'm going to go to green. So before I do, let me talk about the sky. So I mentioned that if I have a lot of sky, typically I do a complementary underpainting. So I've got complementary out here in the wings at the edges, and consonant local color here in the middle. Blue sky, blue underpainting. So for some reason, that's just what my intuition told me to do today. Doesn't mean I'll do the same thing tomorrow, but today that's what I felt like going. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm running into the ceiling, so I will stop right there. My instruction from my client was even though I took this picture a week ago in early February, my client that is requesting a spring or springtime painting. That is to say, with leaves on the trees. So I am not. Oh, sorry, I forgot I ran into the ceiling, so I can't slide it over. So I am not copying the photograph in the color realm, because I want this to be springtime color instead of wintertime color. And if I may just point out, because you're more than welcome to say I'm inconsistent, because I am making no big claim at being consistent. Because you could say, well, if you had a lot of sky, you did complementary. Where here you have a lot of green, why are you not doing complementary? And if anybody says that to me, I go, good observation. And the answer is no, good answer. Now there is an answer, and that is that in the final painting, the focal point is going to be here. I do not want huge amounts of energy spent looking at the lower third of this painting. The lower third of this painting, which is essentially just a grassy savanna, a park area with a path going through it, and a path up here, I guess, and the brow of the hill. That's all that the foreground, and then trees. I don't want people spending a lot of energy looking at the bottom third. And so I'm going to, in the bottom of this painting then, I am going to achieve my finished color by building up layers and layers and layers of mostly consonant, that is, as opposed to dissonant, mostly consonant colors, that is, green, different shades of green. Okay, so does that make sense? Because the complementary underpainting trick, if I can call it that, that complementary underpainting trick actually draws attention to itself quite a bit, and I don't want a lot of attention drawn to this lower part of the painting. So that actually does answer the question, why am I not doing red, say, under all this green? And because, of course, sometimes I, in fact, yes, do that. It's hard to say do twice. I do that. We have grandchildren living in the house, and to them, do is something completely different. But once again, do you see this big red swoosh? I'm really liking it. I'm going to diminish it just a little bit by rubbing it some more. I'm going to spread it out some more. That's that watercolor stick that I used when I first started this broadcast. Well, let me look at my reference photo here for a minute. Oh, I asked a question and then I just answered it one way. I'm not even sure I did that. I said, why am I coloring outside the lines? All right, and that's right. And then I distracted myself and never answered that question. So let me answer that now. Why am I coloring outside the lines? When I'm painting the sky, I come all the way down, past a foot outside the lines and so forth. And I'm still doing that, as you can see. Two reasons. One, I've already mentioned, that I want a large amount of chaos on the canvas. And the chaos is only achieved if you paint, frankly, like a crazy man, or crazy woman, if you will. Okay? So that's reason number one. There is another reason, a little bit more esoteric than that one. It's a principle that I discovered 15 or 20 years ago, and it has served me well ever since. And it's a real simple, sort of arbitrary principle. And it is this: human beings, we got some noise, let me fix that. All right, human beings like to see little bits of the object, color from the object that has escaped into the background, and colors of the background that have infused themselves, escaped into the object. So the classic example I usually use is a red barn in front of the blue sky. Okay? Human eyeballs get a kick out of seeing little bits of the red barn in the blue sky and little bits of the blue sky in the red barn. I'm not going to try to defend that right now, I'm just giving it to you. So by painting outside the lines, I'm achieving that very, very specific objective simply by coloring outside the lines. Okay, so it's a really quick, easy way to do that. But hello, Susan. Nice to hear from you. Crystalline says to spread the color and create cohesion. That is it. Yes. Okay, I'll add that. That's a third reason. If you paint inside the lines, then everything becomes compartmentalized. And we don't want that. We want the whole thing to feel cohesive. So thank you very much, Crystalline. You named it. That's good. I should have said that as well. Let me pause then before, and I'll put you here right in front of it as well as I can. I know you're still getting a bad glare. It can't be helped. But I want you to see the overall painting, pretty much. And if you don't, forgive me, I'm not being self-congratulatory, I'm being instructive, I'm being pedagogical here. If you don't think that this is beautiful, and I wish you could be here, it's so much better, I hear this all the time, it's so much better in person than it is on the video, but so you have to use a little bit of imagination. If you don't think this is beautiful, I want to say, smart aleck, what are those two things on the front of your head? Eyeballs. This is just a feast for the eyes. I'm not going to quit here. It's not done. But what makes it beautiful? Not my geniusness. What makes it beautiful is crazy, transparent, translucent orange. I mean, green on top of orange with red. All this texture. I mean, purple. Look at that. Purple, red. It's an absolute feast. It's a gluttonous feast of color. I mean, it's just like, you know, help me. I'm eating so much color. I weigh 600 pounds. It's just beautiful. And please understand that at the same time, it's a dang accurate drawing of the city skyline. Got that? So I've got two things happening in the same painting. One is real accurate drawing, which all human beings like it, except those that have MFAs, Master of Fine Arts degrees, because they have drunk the Kool-Aid, and they're corrupted by their professors. Forgive me, let me get you pointed in the right direction here. But anyway, all human beings like to see stuff drawn accurately by other human beings. Unless you've gone to college and majored in art, then you're ruined. I did go to college and major in art, and it took me decades to get over it. That's another story. We've talked about that a lot. So it's drawing, but it's the chaos is really what makes it beautiful. It's all the abstract things. I mean, even look, I still have pencil lines. Look at this. This great big arc right there. Completely abstract. Now, again, for some of you who may be new, some of all of that is going to be covered up and diminished, erased, you could say, by opaque paint being put on top of it in later stages. But not all of it. Just like, okay, for instance, let's take this. Can you see it? Yeah, you got glare there, but this big pencil, you could tell I just went like this with a big black pencil. All right, and in my opinion, that's too much of a good thing. It is a good thing, but it's too much. So in subsequent layers, I don't know when, maybe the next layer, but it will be covered up a little bit here and there and here and there, but it'll still be peeking through because it is a good thing. I'm not going to obliterate it. Same thing with this crazy red stuff here and the crazy green stuff here and blue there. Big red, this is paint over here, red. It's all good, but it's going to be dialed down to taste in the later stages of the painting process. All right, so much for talking. I hope you're getting some of that. I hope it's fun to you. I'm going to take just a minute and close up. Tell you what, just in case there's anybody watching who really doesn't know me or doesn't know my world, here's my little pots. These are not art store products. Do you understand? We have a store here in Raleigh called the Container Store, and I have several kits like this. And every one of these color ones is about 50% Lucas Krill fluid acrylics and about 50%, in this case, cheap Jerry's Studio acrylic. My favorite transparent acrylic is GAC 100. Liquitex Gloss Medium and Varnish is a second place. But this stuff here will do. I'm always buying different stuff to give it a try. As long as it's not archivally, it's not bad archivally, I'm always glad to try out new and even cheap products. You have to watch out for archival quality, but no problem here with these. All right, back to the job at hand then, which is. Hang on, I'll get you pointed in the right direction here shortly. All right, the next task is white highlights, white details, white stuff. Let's bring this down a little bit. I've talked occasionally in the past about my crazy easels. I was telling somebody not too long ago in person, somebody that I was talking to in the flesh, about how life is funny. Life is just funny. My dad was a pretty good painter. Let me fix you guys here shortly. and painted on the most crazy cheap easel, you know, 3 sticks and a board going across. I mean, just unbelievably bad easel that my dad did some beautiful paintings on. You do not need a good easel to be a good artist. Let me say that again. In fact, you don't need anything to be a good artist. And I remember, years and years and years looking either online or in the catalogs or in the art store at these rather gigantic, like this one here, electric easels. So, you know, the person, here's a funny too, the person the other day, I mentioned it briefly yesterday, who accused me of being a rich so-and-so because I had been to Paris. Oh my goodness, what they don't know. Okay, so that same person whose philosophical hero is Karl Marx, that same person would look at this easel and sneer at me as a rich person. Never miss the opportunity to say something bad about Karl Marx. It's one of the guiding principles of my life. Not the man, just his book, which I've read, by the way. Das, I don't mean the little one, the Communist Manifesto. I mean the big one. Das Kapital. I'm a few pages from the end of finishing the whole thing. Anyway, I can give you one description of Karl Marx in one word, just for those of you who don't know. And I'm sorry if he's your hero. Come over here, we'll have an exorcism for you. One word for Karl Marx is called graceless, devoid of grace, utterly graceless. Whew. If you want to read something, it's like almost a perfect antidote. There's another book I'm accidentally reading at the very same time by a living author. His name was Daniel Lapin, L-E-P-I-N, and he's a Jewish rabbi. And in it, the name of the book is Thou Shalt Prosper. And he says, I'm going to give all you goyim, he didn't use the word, I used the word, I'm going to give all you Gentiles the secrets. How come so many Jewish people are wealthy? I love it. And his book is so full of grace. It's especially after me reading Das Kapital, which is just grumpy and dark and evil and depressing. Reading this book by Daniel Lapin is just a bath for the soul. And I feel like I can say that because I can't be very much accused of getting religious because he's Jewish. So we don't share the same religion. And yet I love him and his book. All right, so I don't think I need to broadcast for a long time because what I'm going to be doing for the next hour probably is basically what you see me doing here, which is now it's most fun right now because the glaze that I just put on there is still wet. Now I'm going to lose that aspect in just a few minutes because it's all drying, of course. So by the time I get, just a few minutes into it, I'll be painting white on dry, which is easier, but not quite as much fun. When you paint into wet paint, when you paint wet and wet, you get a certain glorious sloppiness that you don't get painting wet on dry. And it's, in fact, that very same sloppiness that drives realists crazy. I know, because I were one, when I first started oil painting and I was in the first half of my art journey still. When I started oil painting 20 some years ago, I was still my mindset was, let's paint stuff that looks like stuff. So those of you who are still, I was going to say stuck, but I won't say stuck. Those of you who are still joyfully journeying through the first half of your art journey, which is your goal, which is a very good goal, very, very good goal, which is to make stuff look like stuff. Then painting wet into dry is much, you like much better than painting wet in wet. But once you get past, once you cross that threshold, once you cross the Rubicon, there is no going back. Little Caesar Roman history illusion there for you. That's just for you historical smarty pants. Once Caesar crossed the Rubicon, there was no turning back. It was the end of the democracy of the Roman Empire. From now on, it was a totalitarian state, for better or worse. I will point out, though, just from the little bit that I painted in the last couple minutes, I'm already beginning to diminish. See, I'm covering up not with an opaque paint, but with translucent. I'm already diminishing the power of these abstract marks. Do you see? So they're already receding. So in a quick glance then, this is looking a little bit more like a realistic sky. A little bit, but still not completely, because look, it's got especially the red one, but the black one too. It's got all that crazy stuff. All of which, as of course, let's be real clear, all the abstract stuff is deeply confusing, if not troubling, to everybody in the first half of their art journey. All those of you, and believe me, I remember, by the way, I just mixed up some opaque pale blue. It's opaque, but I'm applying it in a thin manner, so the effect is translucent. But I remember so clearly as a young man, looking at much artwork, because I was, at the time, properly so, enthralled with realism. And I really couldn't wrap my mind around why would anyone, like in this case, why would anyone have a big red stripe and big black stripes and all kinds of other stuff right in the middle of their blue sky? All right? Okay, and I answer that all the time, but I'll answer it very briefly right now and then move on. I call my style of painting, and I got this from David Lafell, Big Dog, famous artist. He calls his painting abstract realism. And 10, 12 years ago, when I heard him use that term for his work, I said, oh, thank you, David. That is the perfect description for what I'm trying to do. It's clear, it's quite clear that I'm a realistic, it's realism, quite clear, and yet also deeply confusing to anybody who thinks my objective is to be completely realistic, because clearly it is not. And my answer is no. Any subject matter that I paint, any subject whatsoever, the subject is a thinly veiled excuse for what? For all of the abstract elements. By the way, I just know the top of that little pyramid up there, I just realized it's going to get moved over about 1/8 of an inch to the right. And the erroneous mark will probably still be at least somewhat visible in the finished painting, and thereby creating a good look. Anyway, so why do I have abstract marks going through my paintings? Because it turns out that in my world, the abstract marks are actually paramount over the picture. I like to mispronounce the word just to be ornery. It's like a tug of war or a interplay a little fight and a struggle between the picture and the abstract elements. And it's my job as an artist to strike the perfect balance between those two opposite, if you will, opposite impulses. You know what? These brushes are too small. And you hear that swishing? By the way, just for what it's worth, see these brushes? They've had the heck beat out of them continually. I just want to make the point, just to help some of you who are deeply confused about life. Acrylic paints are hard as heck. Replace the stronger term and you get the full impact. Acrylic paints are really, really hard on brushes and everything. A brush hard on your clothes, hard on the floor, hard on everything. It's acrylic paints. And I say that because many of you beginners, forgive me, I don't usually call you beginners, but I'm just going to talk to the beginners here for a moment. Many of you beginners, you say, oh, I paint in acrylic because it's easier or something like that. And you're wrong. It's actually the very opposite. Acrylics are hard. Oils are easy, including easy on your brushes. Oils are much, much easier to clean on your brushes than acrylics are, because acrylics dry so quickly. If I use these brushes, as I will, for a mere 5 minutes, which is not very long, and I'll be using them much longer than that, but even if I just use them for 5 minutes, I have acrylic paint drying down here in the bowl and the hip of my bristles, if you will, and the bristles that are down there close to the ferrule, and just can't be helped. And I use all kinds of chemicals to revive and rescue and recover acrylics that have dried in my brushes, but it's too little, too late. You still can't do enough. By the way, you see now I'm going back and intentionally messing up. I was getting too, talking about coloring in the lines. I was doing a little bit too much of it. I'm going to leave this guy for a while. I'm getting tired of it. It's not done. This is a good principle why I've taught this every once in a while. You don't have to be OCD like me. You don't, I'm not OCD, but I am OC, obsessive compulsive. I try to draw the line at disorder, but you don't need to be OC and like, doggone it, I started the sky, I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna stay there with it until I'm done. Yeah, whatever. No, you don't need to do that. You do not need to do that. In fact, sometimes it's a good idea, especially if you're getting, just tired of one thing. Just move on to something else. So I'm back to pure white here. I'm just making a mess here. Let me give you another rant that has been a favorite of mine for the last couple of months. That is that I'm going to try not to ever use the term loose painting again, unless that's what I mean, and then it'll be in a derogatory sense. Like everybody else, I was born and bred in the art world, using the term Loose painting. Yes, yes. Hooray, hooray for being loose, right? It's pretty much standard standard terminology in the art world, in the art school, art teaching, art professor world. Loose painting. And then I discovered, just by using it, discovered that the term is detrimental, especially to early journey painters, because it's confusing, and I think it clearly leads to some bad unintended results. So instead of calling my painting loose, I'm saying I'm gonna paint tight, which carries the connotation of accurate rendering, does it not? I'm going to accurately draw my subject matter, and indeed, I mean, to a degree, that's what you see me doing. You know, pretty accurate for a 3 by 6 foot painting. But the word is not loose. The word is energy, or the concept. The concept you want to aim for is, don't paint things loose. Paint them with energetic strokes. Paint them, draw them, render them accurately. But with energetic strokes, or another term that I use a lot is interesting marks. Am I right in your way? I am kind of. So let me move you guys a little bit. Maybe that'll be better. So my subject matter, the nice part about this approach to painting that I'm doing in this particular painting is really all the the basic hardcore drawing is already finished, accomplished. I don't have to sweat much anymore about what goes where, getting things accurately placed. All my sweating in that regard is done, which frees me up then for all my subsequent layers, frees me up to focus on energetic marks or interesting marks, which you see me doing a lot of. That reminds me of another description that I use often, is this. Wait, I'm about to forget it before, I better get it out. I'm too busy painting. I literally forgot what I was going to say, so I'll come back to it in a minute. Another description for loose painting I was going to give you. I'll come back to it because I'm sure it was brilliant. Whatever it was brilliant. Isn't that funny? I just forgot it just like that because my brain went all of a sudden into painting mode and abandoned completely the verbal side of my brain. Just came up empty for a second there. Don't worry, that won't stop me from talking. Just because I have nothing to say. That will not keep me from talking. Oh. You saw, some of you, my palette knife. Here it is. A while ago, just not a palette knife at all, as you can see. It's from one of the tools from my garage. When you paint this large, they do make palette knives this large, of course. They cost quite a bit more than this tool because anything that's sold at an art store costs more. And I say that with a clear conscience. I spend thousands of dollars a year, thousands of dollars every year at art stores. So they really can't complain, I don't think. I was just imagining my friends at Jerry's Autorama hearing that comment and saying, wait a minute, you're supposed to be sending people our way. True enough, and I do, plenty of times. In fact, they're running out of, they have run out of those black pencils because I think enough of you or somebody around here is paying attention to what I'm doing and buying all the white pencils at the store, art store. Buying all the black pencils, I mean. I'm thinking. One of the best things about oils as opposed to acrylics is that with oils you have a lot more time to do like the thing that I just did, whereas I'll do it again here, where I put down the paint and then move it around, do something to it, scratch through it, whatever it may be. Like this. With acrylic, you really have to hurry up, which is a disadvantage. With oils, you have a lot more time to do that, and that is, in fact, one of the, in my opinion, one of the chief benefits or advantages that makes oils easier to use than acrylics. I've talked many times over the years, both in online here and in my live painting classes, about, usually the term that I use is interesting marks. I say the essence of good painting. The essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And now, what doth an interesting mark make is a very good question and not an easy one to answer. My wife is calling me, so I'm going to take a little break here and call her back. Let me talk about what doth an interesting mark make for just a minute before I leave you to talk to my wife. One way to describe interesting marks is it's the marks that your hands naturally make if you hold your brush or pencil, whatever, in anything but the death control grip. In other words, the death control grip is designed to diminish or work against interesting marks. So if you will hold your brush side saddle, two brushes, yes, it's better than one. If you will hold your brush side saddle and fairly back far, see, as opposed to this, tongue painting, where are you? Right? This is not interesting mark. Now the reason many, and I know this because I know this is the way I felt. It took me a long time to really get it, really understand why energetic strokes and interesting marks are superior to, because they're certainly not more realistic, right? If you want realism, if you want hyper realism, then the death control grip is your only choice, right? But once you've learned that The world does not rise and set on super or hyper-realism. Once you've discovered that, then you can go to an expressive grip, and you allow your hands to move in a natural manner, which means an imprecise manner. In fact, many of you younger painters, or early journey painters, you're angry at your hand when it wiggles and jiggles and doesn't do precisely what you tell it to do. And I'm telling you, you are getting angry at good painting. It's your hand trying to make you a good artist. And you're spending so much energy being upset that your hand doesn't do exactly what you tell it to do, that you're in fact going in reverse, going away from good painting because of your irritation with that aspect of your hand moving and, you know, without, so to speak, without your permission, wiggling and jiggling and doing little things, making little erroneous marks. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to end this broadcast there. You've seen enough. I'll be doing this for a while. The next thing I'll do after this is probably a little bit more transparent glazes in acrylics. Unless I decide to go straight to oil. That's always a possibility. But if I do one more layer of glaze, then I'll do yet one more layer of white. Okay, but each layer gets lesser and lesser than the layer before. Covers up fewer acres, as I like to say, than the stage or the phase before it. All right, guys, let me see. A few more comments I should look at. Uncle, yes, I did indeed. I did a very similar picture last year, exactly about a year ago, in fact. Slightly larger than this one, and that's what this client saw that one on Fine Art America, and contracted me to do one for them, which of course is delightful. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for your company. I appreciate it very much. I'm gonna call my wife, obediently call my wife back, and then continue to paint for a while. And then go to a meeting, Fine Arts League of Cary tonight. That'll be fun. All right, bye-bye.